G'day, hey, hi, and welcome. Alright, so I got some photography here. The goal here is just kind of show you some close-up shots, some macros, some wide angle, and whatever. Nothing really specific to pay attention to here. But the idea is just to see how the colors are going to change from like dark browns to blues to greens and then to go in yellow. So you can see this is kind of like the birth of spring every year. So nothing much to see right now. The idea is more just kind of like backgrounds and textures, that kind of thing. And you can see the life is slowly coming out. There's not a lot to take pictures of, but in the theme it'll start to make more sense as it goes. Things will start to brighten up. And you can use some of these kind of ideas just to see how the bulk is in the background. Most of these shots aren't modified. They're, pretty much the way they came out of the Nikon D100 camera that I have. And we can see there's a bit of a switch in color here, so we've got some blues in there. It's still not fully brightened up yet, but it's giving you an idea of different light settings and stuff like that, and just, different ideas. And also how your camera might capture red, blue, green, that type of thing. Now we start to see some of the greens coming in and brighten up a bit more. Here we see kind of like, early plants coming in, so now you start to see a lot of greens, just get some reds and yellows in there and some brown and whatever. Now you got some blues coming in. You've got darker blues. This shot's a little bit modified, but I like the way it came out. So we got blues and reds in there. Now it's going to start to slowly turn into getting into the yellows. So you can see there's a bit of everything in there. You got a lot of yellow. You got yellows and blue, yellows and greens. There's blues in there, hints as well. And you can see the bulk how I'm doing it. Now the lens I'm mainly using for most of the close-up stuff in here is my 70-300 Sigma lens with the macro feature. And just take note of the depth of field, not so much the subject. I mean, twigs and branches aren't really the most fascinating things to take pictures of. But sometimes early spring, you can see now we're moving into the real greenish kind of stuff. And here you got some, it's an interesting shot, even though it's, the bulk on there is pretty good. I mean, there's pine trees in the background, you can't tell. We got some fiddleheads here. That was done actually with the 18 to 70 millimeter Nikkor lens. We've got some grasses coming up, and as soon as it switches, there we go. Sometimes it takes a second or two to switch. There we go. We got some different shades of green here. You got really bright green here. Now we're going to start to work into the yellows, and you're going to see some, more macro shots. So now we got some greens and yellows here that are really dominant. Good old-fashioned dandelions with nothing else to take pictures of. Field of dandelions. Now we're moving into basically open field here, so we got blues and greens and yellow. You can see some of the dandelion highlights, and there's still a lot of browns and stuff in there. Now we're moving into yellow. Very obviously yellow. So we've got yellows and greens. It's kind of bulked, not too bulked, but kind of bulked in some areas. Again, this was done mainly with at 70 mil. I can't remember what lens I had on. Most likely I had my 70 to 300 millimeter lens on this, judging by the bulked background. Yeah, so you can just see how you can use doing something like this to kind of gauge what your camera's capable of for red, blue, green. It's not really a scientific test, but just kind of good to know how it fits into the grander scheme of things. We're going to get very yellow very soon. You can also judge your contrast, some cameras contrast more than others. Most of these photos, again, this is how it came out of the camera. Some of them are a bit modified, some of them are not. Gives you an idea. The next two shots are the same shot, but this is modified. The one after it's the original. So you can change things around a bit too. That's what it originally come out of the camera. The next two are all original, and the last photos are all original. Now we're going to go into like after this shot, we're going into like extreme yellow, yellows and light greens, and here we go. So we got light green. There was a bit of an overcast and stuff like that. I was trying to get the shots between the clouds, so to speak. So these aren't, again, the most fascinating colors, but as patterns they're kind of interesting. Now we got some bees in here, these little buggers. It was amazing. I actually caught them as much as I could because it was windy. These guys were, they were like, hurling around there at like warp 9. So I was amazed I got any of them. Some came out better than others. Macro photography in itself is a lot of fun. I'm going to do, this is kind of, I guess, video just to kind of touch on it, but I'm going to do other videos that are like, here's macro photography. I basically have a 1/2 scale on my macro lens. It's basically the 70 to 300 with the macro feature, and the most closest you get is about 1/2 scale. So the B is about half its original size, so to speak, depending on at what distance you're at. And it's not like you can get right up on them. So it's macro, but it's not like true macro, so it gets you there. You can see some good detail on the bee, and if you crop it, you can get like amazing, you can see the dandruff, not the dandruff, but the pollen on the bee detail. You can see like the hairs on the hairs of the bee if you crop it. But if you don't crop it, this is what you get at 1/2 scale macro, which is not bad. It's not bad. It keeps the subject interesting. But the bokeh is really cool. It's kind of hard to get these kind of shots sometimes when things are blowing around, but you get the idea. It's just basically a field full of yellow flowers. I don't know the name of these flowers, and some bees on it, and gives you a really nice theme there. So anyway, I just thought I'd show you guys these and take out of it what you will. There's nothing really scientific here on this, but just to give you an idea. So alright, anyway, if you like this kind of content, there you go. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourselves, be true to others. Always a great thing. Have yourselves a great day.